Some of the biggest problems a country faces, they don't happen with a big bang. They're not going to make the headlines or spark massive protests. They happen quietly, one person, one decision at a time, until a nation looks up and realizes its future has just silently slipped away. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today, this silent exit. And this quote, man, it really gets right to the heart of it. There are no national alerts when a brilliant scientist or a game-changing engineer decides to leave. It's an invisible problem, a slow, quiet drain of the very people a nation needs to build what's next. We've all heard the usual answers, right? It's for the money or for a better opportunity. But what if the real reason is something much, much deeper? What if it's something those explanations completely miss? Well, that's the big question we're going to unpack right now. All right, so to kick things off, we've got to understand the nature of this quiet departure. Because the fact that it's invisible is exactly what makes it so damaging. You can't fix a problem you refuse to even see clearly. So this is a really crucial distinction. Look, people moving around the world for work or family, that's totally normal. That's just migration. But brain drain? That's a one-way street. It's when your top talent leaves and they're not coming back. There's no credible path or real reason for them to return. It's a net loss, period. So who exactly is on this one-way street? Well, it's not random. The drain is strongest in these fields that absolutely depend on stable, trustworthy systems. We're talking about people who need freedom, patience, and predictable support to do their best work. All things that are just not guaranteed when institutions are unreliable. And this brings us to a very common, and let's be honest, a pretty unfair argument, that when people leave, it's somehow a failure of their patriotism. So let's just tackle this one head on. This is a question that gets thrown around all the time, right? It frames a really complex personal and professional decision as just a simple moral failing. But is it really that simple? Let's dig in. I love this comparison because it illustrates the two sides of the coin so perfectly. The common view, it just shames the individual. But the systemic view, that asks a much deeper question. Has the system actually earned that loyalty in the first place? It suggests loyalty can't just be a one-way demand. It has to go both ways. And here's the thing, loyalty has to be built on a solid foundation. It needs fairness, it needs protection from, random, unpredictable decisions from people in power. And maybe most of all, it requires the basic dignity of being able to do your job and contribute without having to fight a broken system every single day. Wow. This quote just absolutely nails it. Asking people to sacrifice their entire professional life for some symbolic idea, while the system itself couldn't care less about their actual skills, that's not patriotism. It's just using emotion to take something from people that the system isn't willing to earn. Okay, so let's move on to the next big myth. We're always told people leave for a bigger paycheck. But the source material we're looking at argues that's really just scratching the surface of what's going on. And here's where we see the real story. Sure, a salary gap exists, of course it does. But the much wider, more powerful gap is what our source calls the dignity gap. And this is the real engine behind the quiet exit. So what does that even mean, a dignity deficit? Well, it's the daily friction, the exhaustion that comes from working in a system that doesn't trust you. It's having your expertise constantly questioned, having unclear roles, and never ever feeling safe enough to experiment or fail. Because failure gets punished instead of being seen as part of how you innovate. It's just draining. And this lack of trust, it doesn't just drive people away, it drives money away too. When laws are uncertain and policies are all over the place, capital flight isn't really about greed. It's just a rational way to protect your assets from a totally unpredictable environment. It's the exact same logic, just with a different resource. Okay, so if it's not a failure of patriotism and it's not just about money, then how should we be thinking about this? This is where we get a really powerful new way to look at the whole issue. This is the key takeaway that changes everything. Instead of judging the people who leave, we should be listening to the message their departure sends. Their exit is data. It's powerful, unfiltered feedback on the health of the entire system. So what is that feedback telling us? It's basically a map. It points directly to the institutions that are failing their people. It shows us which professions don't have basic protections and what kinds of big ambitions just feel unsafe to even attempt in that environment. It's a diagnosis of the system's biggest weaknesses. This is such a sharp insight. We all love to celebrate that one person who comes back and succeeds against all the odds. But the very fact that their story is so exceptional, it just proves the rule. A healthy system shouldn't need heroes just to get by. It should be a place where normal, everyday excellence can thrive. So we've diagnosed the problem. What's the solution? Well, the answer isn't about pleading with people or shaming them. It's about earning that talent back by actually repairing the system. And here's the roadmap for that repair. First, create protected spaces where professionals can do their work shielded from politics. Second, reward competency predictably. Make promotions and funding about merit, not about who you know. Third, build credible, real pathways for people to return that aren't career suicide. And, maybe the most important one, stop moralizing the exit and start fixing the system. The path forward becomes crystal clear when you see what works versus what just doesn't. What works is the hard, unglamorous job of institutional reform that actually builds dignity and trust. What fails are the easy, superficial tactics, like emotional appeals and celebrating those one-in-a-million success stories. One builds a real foundation, the other is just papering over the cracks. And this is what's ultimately at stake. The real danger isn't loud criticism. The real danger is silence. It's the silence of the most capable people finally giving up on the system and just walking away. Because that is a loss of the future itself. And that brings us to our final thought. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. Instead of asking why talented people are leaving, maybe we should be asking, what does it take to build a system that people would freely and proudly choose to be a part of? What does a system that's truly worth staying for actually look like?